This is Steve Heitzer, and you're listening to Everyone Needs a Spotter. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Everyone Needs a Spotter, the multifamily fitness podcast brought to you by the expert team here at RMS Fitness. I am here and happy to be the host of the show today. Your host, as always, Steve Heitzer, joined by 2/3 of my usual faithful podcasting companions. Steven, he's not here, but it's kind of the usual Adio situation. No, we miss him this week. It's been probably a lot of Fridays since we've really been able to get on here and do a recording. Summer has been absolutely brutal on our podcasting schedule, but we're happy to be back here today, and we're not going to talk about who's not here. We're going to talk about who is here. Fearless leader in the back corner, leading fearlessly and not click-clacking per Emily's instructions. How goes it, Robert Decker?
Well, Steve, I think you said it all, buddy. The summer's been busy, and with busyness comes hectic lifestyle, and it took us a moment to get things in order, and now we're here to talk about stuff.
Yeah, there was a whole time this summer when we just kept receiving equipment and had nowhere to put it, and no one was ready to take it. And we just kept receiving equipment, and we didn't think we were going to make it out of that warehouse at some points. But it's been a summer for sure. But we made it. Emily, little wipey, she's here. She's ready. She's excited. She's got lots to say. What's on your mind today?
It's Friday, and it's good to be back. Takes some time for us to actually coordinate all three or even four of us to get together. But we have to push on. We have to make time, and here we are.
We do. Robert's been saying podcast since 9 o'clock this morning, and we've just now at 3:55 managed to get around to recording one. So we're excited to be here, though. For those that don't know, what we do here on Everyone Needs a Spotter is we periodically get together around the mic and we discuss things that we found in the course of our time serving the multifamily industry as partners for fitness equipment sales, service, and maintenance. And basically, we just try to share information with you all that we think could be beneficial to people in that space. And normally we talk about kind of what's been new as of late. I know for me, I had a chance to go back up to an installation of a fitness center that we installed probably about 2.5 months ago now, up in New Jersey. And it was very exciting to go up there because the building is now open, it's operational. And as you all, if you've listened to the podcast before, you've heard me say some version of how much I enjoy going back to these buildings after they're completed and seeing that finished product. And this one was really exciting because this gym was packed. It's only been a few months. They're probably only at 15-20% occupancy, but man, there was dozens of people in the gym working out. There was people sharing equipment, working, sets in with one another because there was that many people in there. So it was really, really exciting. And I always enjoy seeing people, being fit, staying healthy in those spaces. So that was really exciting for me this week to go up there and see some of what we've done and see it getting used. Few months in, very few issues to report up there, honestly. So very happy with that project. Very, very satisfying week for me in that regard. And shout out to Dan, one of our technicians. He ran up there with us, and he was able to help out with giving the equipment some TLC and some technology concerns, which go hand in hand with our discussion point, which we'll get to later. But Robert, how about your week? Anything new and exciting or fresh on the mind that you'd like to talk about?
Well, I think the whole month has been a little bit of everything, and I think we'll talk about that in detail in a few minutes. But this week, this week is a lot of catch up, and that requires me to go back. And the reason we're having technology is because that's what's taken up most of my time. Is we're living in the world of software. And software in the repair side of things is always reactive as opposed to proactive. And because of that, we've had our challenges. And, I've been doing this so long that it's not as if it's new, but it poses a problem in a different way every time it becomes a problem because of how massive it can be, Mechanically speaking, there was a time where, maybe a bearing went bad in a front roller, and it went bad often in certain manufacturers. But now you're talking about consoles across the board, regardless of manufacturer. Very tough to keep up with. And so those are the challenges we're having right now.
Yeah, I would definitely say that technology continues to be one of the most prevalent and most problematic parts of our industry. It's very common. There's a demand for it. There's a lot of reasons why people want it, but it does come with a lot of strings attached, so to speak. So I definitely agree with you there. Emily, how about you this week?
Yeah, this week was probably the first week in a little while that we actually were behind our desks and working and catching up. So it was a lot of catching up, which is good. Of course, we always like to go out in the field. Last week, I don't want to steal any of Steven's thunder when he finally comes back.
Oh, yeah.
But we had a lot of major installs that we've been a part of, and one of them required for some of us in our team to go out and do orientation of the equipment. And it was the biggest we've ever done because it ended up being, I think, around 360 people in a course of 3 days that had this orientation. And so that was a lot, but it was good. We haven't had one of those in a while, so it was kind of neat to get us out in the field and kind of fine-tune the way we handle those. And made me want to reach out to our current contracted customers to remind them that we offer this service.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when I heard how many people you all said were at that orientation, I don't think we've ever done an event for a property that was able to generate that kind of foot traffic and attendance. I mean, kudos to that community for being able to generate that amount of interest from the residents there and the people in the community to be able to get that kind of a crowd out there. And really, how cool is that? I mean, now everyone's going to have had a chance to see the equipment while the professionals were there, ask questions. Really, I mean, how many of those people now are going to walk in there and not feel like they know kind of more or less what to do and how to use that equipment? So I feel like that's just going to really, raise the level as far as the number of people there at the community who feel good about going to the gym and using it. So that's just really cool. But yeah, I mean, part of the reason why we have to offer services like orientations is because sometimes the equipment now is more complex than it used to be. Like even the strength equipment. I know part of what you all were dealing with out there was that they bought some really nice high-tier equipment, and with high-tier equipment comes, different adjustments and things that aren't always, a feature on lower-end products. So there was a lot that they had to kind of get used to adjusting different elements of the machine. A leg extension machine in that product line might have 4 or 5 different adjustments for the shin pad and the thigh pad and the back, stop. So there's a lot involved in that. So it's really cool to be able to offer that kind of orientation that way. And then the technology on the other side of that, which I think is kind of what we were planning to kind of get into, that can be a whole nother can of worms for a lot of properties, not only to be able to use correctly, but also to know when it comes to troubleshooting and things like that. I think one of the reasons why we see so much technology in the gym is because there is a kind of an arms race thing that has gone on in the industry where everyone's trying to have the coolest and the flashiest equipment in their gym, and they want these properties to look more and more like dues-paying facilities or gyms where you might go and pay to have a membership. But I think one of the big differences is how those properties approach purchasing their equipment and how they approach maintaining their equipment versus how those gyms and clubs do. So I think that's a big disconnect, is that people assume that if the equipment performs well in one environment, that it's going to be perform similarly well in another. But those communities generally aren't planning to do a lot of things like replace equipment regularly or paying someone to come in monthly to check things out. So we'll get into all the specifics of that. But in a nutshell, Robert, what would you say are some of the things that you've ran into with technology most recently that come up regularly that properties just, are struggling with?
It's funny, my phone's recording this, but looking at Emily's phone reminded me that your phone's how old now?
A year.
And I can only imagine in a year how many updates her phone has downloaded on a consistent basis. And she's probably gone in there and selected automatic updates, and during the night, an update will happen while it's on charge. Mm-hmm. But a treadmill or a bike, maybe even something on the wall that would have programs that has software, firmware, I was talking to my son, and we were talking about a latest request from one of our partners. I got to leave their name out because I don't want to embarrass anyone, but he said to me, that is my son, said, "Hey, we're going to have to go out and do a firmware via USB." And I said, why, what customer is going to perform that safely on their own? No one. And when do they find out? When it's not working.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that is the approach that the industry is in across the board. And that is just the challenges, is that some of the glitches and failures that we're seeing in the field is because they haven't updated their equipment.
Yeah.
And updating equipment depends on the factory who's supplying the update. Is the machine hooked up to the internet? And if so, is the speed of the internet going to be able to download that? And if the facility is open 24 hours and someone comes in and presses a button, well, guess what? Update didn't go through. And worse yet, maybe the console freezes. So those are the things that, you don't kind of sell things from that standpoint. Emily, your friend's back.
He just dropped it.
He
off.
dropped it this time.
FedEx delivery on the fly.
That's it. So that's the challenge.
Not sponsored or affiliated with FedEx.
So that's what kind of stepped out to me this week, is that you have updates like that. And not that I don't think Apple produces a good product, but I don't think Emily's going to have that phone 15 to 20 years from now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's going to be one of those things where she's going to have to replace that probably somewhere in that 8 to 10 year range max, if not sooner.
Oh, yeah, maybe even sooner than that with the way that works. But
right.
yeah, but I get your point, though, that the technology itself is a limiting factor in a lot of cases to how long a piece of equipment can properly exist in your space. And we'll get into some of the reasons why. But Emily, I didn't cut you off. Sorry.
No, I was just the thing that kind of just struck a nerve at this orientation was, we put in this equipment, and the property really took their time, going over each piece and wanting to make a good decision of something that is the best, but within reason of all these factors, that you guys are discussing. And from an outsider, they may not see that. And for instance, when we were doing our orientation, we were approached, and this resident said, "You all said this was state of the art." It's not. There's no TVs or anything on this equipment. And to me, I'm like, okay, then what is state of the art? If a TV is to you state of the art and not actually how well this machine is functioned and engineered and created and built, then that's a problem. Because as soon as that TV or any kind of entertainment is not working, that's useless to that person.
You make a good point. That's a really good point. That state-of-the-art thing, I think that was something we had talked about too. Like, what does state-of-the-art really mean, right? What is that? We can go on the website right now and go to any number of apartment communities that are 20 years old, and they're probably advertising a state-of-the-art fitness center. What does that really mean, right? I think what you're explaining, Emily, is a common misconception or disconnect. State-of-the-art doesn't necessarily mean that you are, the latest gimmick or the latest fad or something like that. It means that you're the top of the line, the best available technology, and the most reliable and dependable and well developed. Is what that really should mean. Not just, hey, here's a new thing that's the gimmick of the week, and we threw it on the machine, and then next week that company now goes out of business, and now that gimmick is just, it's there, but it's a dead feature that doesn't really do anything. And we've seen things like that. There are services out there right now that advertise certain live and or on demand rather fitness content, and they've been advertising it, and now that content hasn't changed in 3 years. And they're still advertising state of the art, on demand content and things, but what does that really mean? Again, like what's the value? And as that content continues to age, they're not reinvesting into it, and eventually it's just going to become obsolete. And a lot of features and things on equipment kind of are that way. If they're not tried and true, and the market hasn't truly accepted it and embraced it, a lot of times it's there today and gone tomorrow. But it might be on your machine and just kind of create complications for you or things like that. And I've seen that on technology. There's a bunch of treadmills in our market that have 12-pin iPod adapters hanging off of them, and people ask all the time, like, "What's that for? What's that?" And you tell them, and they're like, "Ew," And it's technology that they bought at one point. Somebody wanted to plug their iPod into their treadmill for some reason to have it come out of the. I don't even know how the technology really worked. I guess there was a headphone jack, and they could listen to their music rather than just have it plugged in.
Everything was wired not too long ago.
Yeah. So, again, that's a thing. But you'll see that technology there, and it was a thing, and now it's not a thing. And that's just one part of it. Then there's the software and the updating. To your point, there is, for some reason, it seems to happen periodically where, well, maybe you could talk about it a little bit. Like there's updates, right, that come out, but then there will be updates that they come out, but for some reason the machines can't just reach out and grab them, and then that requires a site visit. So what's the issue that most properties have when it comes to these like site visits? Like, are they planning for them usually?
No, and that's the thing is, one, another plug for maintenance is that you don't realize it until someone brings it to your attention, because rarely does a machine say it needs an update. Maybe I'm going out on a limb here. I've only done this for 30 years, but I don't think there's a single piece of equipment that says you need to update your equipment, except probably some of the content-driven material that's out there that you'll see. They'll start.
Off the top of my head, I can think of like Echelon is a company I know. A shout out to Echelon. That if there is an update that's available, when you power the machine or power cycle it, it'll usually pop up and say an update is available.
Right, but to your point, it'll power down.
Yep.
Rarely is it on and say you need to do it. So, without going down a rabbit's hole with this particular item, again, you go in, you see the need to do a software. Basically, when the technician goes in, he's checking all the error logs and things like that, and then he'll come across a software update. He'll hit it, and the hopes are, one, not a very, very few are hardwired in, very, very few. Unless it's new construction, then that would be your avenue of expertise. But generally, in my world, added items like that are powered by Wi-Fi, which means how strong is the Wi-Fi, and will it be able to? So if you have 12 pieces of cardio that all need updates, and you hit them all at the same time, it's not going to go smoothly. Yeah. And you kind of experienced that the other day. You're talking about, hey, I would love to have, run any kind of checks and balances, but if the gym is busy, you don't want to shut the gym down to do all of those things. So that is the challenge, is there's not something telling them. Now there are, like, I think you were onto this earlier in the discussion, when you have a gym, they generally have a service which has all of the units, where gym owner, manager comes in, fires up their one PC and sees what treadmill is in need of updating or having a concern. Now, again, that's a service that very few in the multi-housing world have, if any, that could be able to manage every piece of equipment through this software, or cloud service is basically what it is. So that's the thing, is that you've got this good-looking piece of equipment. Yes, everything looks great, but then again, time and any even unforeseen things. If we come across those also, and it's, again, not to be beating a dead horse, and not one particular manufacturer is guilty of this. They all are. is if there is any glitch or anything found in the new product that goes out and starts to get field tested, and then you discover problems, then what I mentioned earlier about the reacting to all of those concerns just requires a lot of effort on various people to try to resolve the problem.
No, I agree. And I think Emily, as someone that receives a lot of like the service calls over the years and requests and things, you've seen a lot of that information that comes through over the years that we deal with, and you see the different write-ups and paperwork. Like you've seen a lot of this stuff. I think it's like probably the case that most of these properties, like when they purchase a piece of high-tech equipment, the expectation for their part is that we're gonna set it up and that it's gonna work very easily and they're not gonna have any issues with the technology. And I think part of the problem with the technology, especially in multifamily settings, is that the tech gets brought into the buildings, but a lot of times the staff turnover in multifamily is pretty high. The change in the site teams happens regularly. And I don't think there's always somebody at the property. I should say that there isn't, well, I did say it, but I'll emphasize it. There isn't always somebody at the property who's willing to really get involved in the gym. Some site teams have somebody who like kind of takes the gym under their wing and makes it their little side project. And that is really a helpful person to have on your team. And it can eliminate a lot of these issues, because sometimes what happens is the technology can quote unquote not work right, but not because the console isn't working or something. It can be environmental things. It could be a power loss that happened overnight at the facility that reset the Wi-Fi connection or something like that. Or it can be an update issue, or it can be a user error where somebody's trying to connect their own Bluetooth devices to a unit and they haven't updated their stuff or something, and it's not working for that reason. And all of that kind of boils down to a lot of times the property just feeling like they didn't get a good thing. Mm-hmm. And that's not always the case. Sometimes it just takes somebody at the property who can get more hands-on with the equipment if things aren't working right, or show a resident how to use something. But that only can happen if someone's actually available and invested in the gym itself. So I think the site team itself can make, a big difference. But like, I wanted to ask you examples of like maybe some of the very like weird requests that we've gotten along the years, if you can remember any of them. But like, I know some of the things I hear about where people will be like, user says the Bluetooth wouldn't connect. And that's a very like broad, issue. Like
it normally is really broad, and it's just not working.
Yeah.
Or the screen's blank, whatever.
Yeah.
So, it's frustrating because obviously a property manager clearly just wants their equipment up and running, mm-hmm. and they don't want to worry about it, and rightfully so. And they reach out to us, but we also want to make sure that it's not user error, to your point, or if it's something easily fixed, like a Wi-Fi issue, whatever, to not have them pay for us to come out if we don't need to come out. And a lot of times that is what ends up happening. So it is unfortunate, but that's how that usually goes.
Yeah, the infamous not turned on. I mean, I've had that kind of stuff, and Robert, you might have been ready to go down that road a little bit, but like you had a comment.
Well, just because this just happened this week. So product's working fine. Now it's not working fine. Property calls, hey, we got reports, it's not working. Well, it took some time, but what we found out was on their end, they changed their firewall.
Oh.
So now what information was able to come in freely can no longer come in freely. But, property management doesn't know that that's what's happening in the background. So now someone from their team has to go in and give the access to this piece of mm-hmm. equipment. But again, service call is incurred. We go out, determine nothing's wrong with it, and then it's internal. And why? Because someone in a department who's looking out for the safety of their company sets up a firewall and protects the computers internally, but they forget that, the equipment in the other room is also using the same Wi-Fi and needs access to come and go as it needs to. And so you create those kinds of concerns. Yeah.
And I think, we're highlighting just a couple of the different examples of things that, the technology, having installed gyms with LED consoles and touchscreen consoles, all the way up to gyms that have, connected fitness, consoles. I think that there really is a home for all these products, and I think if your property is positioning itself a certain way and intends to handle the equipment a certain type of way, well, then you can certainly invest in touchscreen equipment. Like one of the communities I just recently did an install for, they have 2 dedicated amenity like a manager and his assistant basically, and their only job is to help take care of the gym, the bowling alley, the couple other little things that are in the community. But that's like their whole gig is to handle that. So if there's an issue with the bike, he sends me an email. Him and we find a time to connect for 20 minutes on the phone call, and usually he walks down there and we figure it out. It's that kind of thing. Well, that's great. But if you're a small property and you've got like one service tech answering, servicing all your tenant issues, and you've got one leasing agent who also is kind of your concierge, and everything's kind of blended together, that could be really hard for you. And maybe you don't need the added burden of really advanced technology in the gym, because if you don't take care of that equipment, you don't know how to use it properly, what happens to those facilities when they get neglected? I mean, either one of you, what happens when equipment gets neglected and not
things just stop working, then people get frustrated and they don't want to work out in the gym, and it goes downhill.
The residents start treating it bad, they stop using it well. Next thing you know, it almost creates like if it doesn't start with the staff putting a really high value and understanding the equipment in the space, it just creates an environment where everybody else feels that way too. And people stop wiping the equipment down, people stop doing the little things, and then that's when the space gets neglected. And then all of a sudden, you're that property who goes, well, nobody even uses the gym, and it's like, well, it's because all your tech doesn't work. No one's cleaning anything. Half the stuff that, you bought things that didn't really fit the actual needs of the community. And really what you were able to kind of deliver on. So, I think, again, there's no shame in that either. You have to understand your operating budgets, your ongoing maintenance and service, comfortability as far as, what you're going to want to spend money on. I mean, we've probably talked about it 100 times, but like, what's the reality of touchscreen versus LED when it comes to repairs after warranty?
Right. It's night and day. There's just the comparison in cost. And again, we were talking about that. It's because even when you look at the warranty out of the gate, you just got to know you've got about 3 years roughly in our industry is probably a good staple for a warranty. So that's not a long time considering, a lot of the equipment that we are replacing is 10 to 12 years old. So you got to know you got about a 7 to 9 year period where you're on your own. So that's something to think about. And again, as I continue to work in this industry more and more, I start to understand why the product goes in with what it goes in with. Mm-hmm. I understand that. But then we've had an episode before about preparing, like when we get to year 2, year 3, start preparing for the cost of possibility of replacing. And hopefully, because I can think of there's one location in Silver Spring, Maryland that comes to mind that legitimately, when it went in, it was state of the art. And man, it was just such a nice facility. And I remember helping with some minor things when it first was put in, and then how it just plummeted because, again, they didn't prepare for the ups and downs of cost. And mm-hmm. then, wow, coming out of COVID, cost of technology just went through the roof.
Yeah.
Not to mention parts availability. So it can be a rough patch of water for anyone who's trying to sail through that after that warranty, for sure.
Yeah, and you made it a point a minute ago when you talked about how long you've been in the space, you've seen these purchases. Like when I first started working in the fitness industry, I noticed how it seemed like all of the equipment that was in these properties was purchased. They purchased really high end, really durable. A lot of times it was simple, but it was like robust equipment that was going to last a really long time. So that kind of helped me understand like the ownerships in a lot of these, multifamily settings. They were looking for a pretty long term investment into that equipment. So like 7 to 10 years is like what a lot of these properties were hoping to get. Mm-hmm. And if, they weren't looking to hear anything about new equipment inside of that. That's a big difference between that and how most of these clubs handle their equipment. Most clubs are on some sort of like every few years things just get automatically sort of repurchased and traded out or whatever the case may be with whoever they made that when they purchased the big row of treadmills and ellipticals, they probably talked about it then, 3 years, we'll upgrade you to the next batch and we'll do the next batch. And that's how that is structured. So they're not dealing with what you talked about where they have technology in their gym and now the tech's been there for 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 years and it's obsolete technology that's in their gym. It was always planned to be kind of cycled and phased out. And it's just different than what most multifamily properties are looking to do. So I think it is the approach that I've taken with a lot of my communities has just been there's a place for the tech in the gym. Maybe be selective with it. You don't have to put it on every machine. I don't always, if I put touchscreen consoles on my treadmill, I might not put it on the stair climber. Depending on the space and the property, it isn't always necessary and it isn't always in the best interest of the property. That's my opinion. And I try to help people to see that. Of course, selling technologies gets your ticket amounts higher and it gets your sale amount higher, which is what a lot of people are primarily focused on. But I don't think that's the approach I've taken to try to help people have a good final result. But yeah, I think tech can be a blessing or it can be a wreck, what I mean, depending on how you apply it.
And going back to that new install last week with the orientation, did you notice how many people asked if, because Robert and I were really highlighting the aspects of how to use all the strength equipment, whereas Steven and Maya were on the cardio. How many people asked about counters, right, on the strength? And it just made me laugh because I'm like, it's such a not necessary thing, period, yes, in my opinion. But but that's like, strength equipment doesn't break often, right?
Yeah. So
what they're doing, if they want something like that, as soon as that stops working, then again, it's like a service call fee coming out to fix something that really doesn't affect how the machine works.
Nope.
But you see, the little things like that will add additional costs. It's not needed.
Yeah, and I know the exact machines you're talking about, and obviously the brand will be left nameless, but there was a brand that put rep counters on their strength machines, and every time you push the push or pulled the pull, it would give you a little 1, 2. And I'm kind of with you. Most fitness programming I've seen, maximum set ranges is 15. I've lost count myself once or twice ever while working out. It's not common that I'm 7, 8. I don't see the need for that. And to your point, it's a thing that's going to break, and someone's going to complain about it, and then the property is going to be trying to have to figure out what to do. And a lot that those things have batteries in them sometimes that die. It's just a silly thing to have. Unless for some reason it's not for you, but I don't think you should buy something like that if it's just and here's the thing, I think there should be a purpose behind a decision like that, and that would just be, I know there's very general advice to give, but it's think about what you're doing.
For some, that they may consider that being state of the art,
right?
Whereas what we were highlighting was palladium.
Mm-hmm.
So it had that seat adjustment guide, right? So all those pieces are created that once you know what seat position you are supposed to be in on the one, it is that way for all of them. So you can have an easy setup and it's done for you basically, all the thinking.
Yes.
And that's state of the art.
Yeah. The ergonomics and the biomechanics of the machines. The Palladium line is probably the newest selectorized strength line that I'm aware of.
Right.
There could be some brands, but among the bigger commercial equipment manufacturers. And it was designed by some of the best, most well-known equipment designers there are, period. And it is superior in a lot of ways to other products in the market right now. It's state of the art. It doesn't have a rep counter. There's no little AI fitness coach on there telling you to bench press, you can do it. Whatever people think that they're looking for. And we talk about this with strength all the time. If you have some 1999 Muscle Beach equipment down there, like, white frame equipment and things like that. It's never going to just fall apart. If you're waiting for the day when everything just starts to like break and snap in half and fall all over the place to replace it, it's never going to. You're just going to have a really obsolete and uncool fitness center, more or less. And that's what we really, don't want you to have either. Like, state of the art means it's modern, it's appealing, it's safe. People, when they're using it, they're getting the maximum benefit out of their 10 reps or 12 reps. They're not, giving themselves a shoulder impingement because they're using something that was designed 45 years ago.
Right.
Like, that's what state of the art means. That's the tech that people should be looking for, I think, in my opinion, is the technology that's invested in the quality of the equipment, not always a gimmick or always a fad. And this isn't to say, as I want to emphasize, because we have partners in the connected fitness space, there's a home for all that equipment. I quote it every day. I'm not like out here to say any of this equipment doesn't have a home, but if you put it in the wrong home, like, the home life's not going to be good. That's just how it plays out. But yeah, I think that's really kind of a technology in a nutshell. I don't have the timer anymore. Robert stole my mixer.
You're going to have to start slowing it down here, buddy.
Yeah, no, but we're basically done. We could talk about it forever. All these different things that we run into, and it's like we sit here and as we talk, more of the things that we run into kind of just keep coming to mind. But yeah, we'll save them for another time. And really, just a little reminder for folks, it's kind of getting close to the end of budget prep season. People are going to be making final decisions soon. So just think about that. Don't just do some stuff. Talk to us, ask us how it works, how it doesn't work, what the best applications are, and we'll help you make the right moves. Right, Em?
Yep. Correct.
Well, that's it, man. That's all I got. So, I mean, really, what we do here, we just wrap it up with the what are you up to this weekend? I know I am a pretty cool thing tonight. My wife and I are going to an interactive, like, trial kind of show event at a theater. So, like, you get to go and you're part of the jury and you're there and it's a case that happens on the stage and you're kind of like part of it and you get to
That's really cool. I
be
haven't heard
involved
anything
and,
like that.
and vote on like what's going on and stuff. So it's like paying to go have jury duty. I don't know what I'm doing here.
Well, it kind of reminds me of something my sister and my brother-in-law did in August, where they went to. It was a fake wedding, but it was like it's like come in and celebrate Tony and Gina's Italian wedding, and like you go in and you're part of like the reception and they give you champagne and you are sitting at a table with like as if you're at an actual reception, and like it is a show though. And
that's awesome.
I want to do something
For
like
somebody
that.
like me that doesn't even have a big Italian family
Yeah.
or a friend thereof to be able to like
You get
invited.
you get like the drunk uncle, like you have like it's all part of the
Oh,
show.
man.
So anyway, that just reminded me of that.
That's really cool. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's not what I'm doing. I'm going
No,
to the
I'm not
trial
doing
thing. But it's been pretty cool, though. I'm excited. My wife and I, it's kind of like an early anniversary thing because next week's our anniversary.
Very
so
cool.
we're going to
And happy anniversary.
Yeah.
Thank you. Robert?
Just preparing for the rain.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a wet weekend for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So it is what.
I want to say it's gonna be a wet willy, and I don't know
A
why.
wet welly. Yep. I'm going to stick my wet finger right in my ear.
Oh my
Wow,
goodness.
but you got some bachelor time today, right?
Yeah.
Your
I
wife's busy?
Totally forgot about
Yeah.
it. So yeah. So I'll do something productive tonight, but
Yeah, I'm sure.
prepare for the rain and then that's it. I did buy I will say this, I bought a new road bike.
Oh, yeah?
So yeah, I'm gonna get
Nice.
back to the road bike. Well, the kids they're busy, so I can actually pick up the hobby again.
You used to,
so.
I used to do that a
I
lot.
used to ride a lot, so I'm back to that. And I think it's the alternative because I used to run and now I can't run like I used to because of aches and pains. So we'll try the bicycling, see how that goes.
All right, so if you see him out there in his aerodynamic windsuit on his bike, give him a good wave.
Why'd he have to go there? The real long helmet, right?
Yeah. With his aerodynamic helmet and his little biking unitard, we'll be good to go. Oh, man. Emily, what's up with you this weekend?
I really don't really have too much going on, so we'll see.
Yeah, we will see. We'll find out next time when we return to another exciting episode of Everyone Needs a Spider. It's been great to be here. I am your host, as always. We would just simply ask that if you have found this information to be educational, informative, or entertaining, that you would share our information and our podcast with one person in your network. We know you have lots of friends, and that somebody can find this information to be helpful or useful, so we ask that you would share that. And otherwise, we wish you a very great weekend. Thank you for listening. I am the host, Steve Heitzer, signing out as usual. Robert Decker.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Emily Vinos.
Have a great weekend.
See you next time.